Now, in our environment, we really have two types of users, don't we? We have a person with authority to be on our organization's network, usually an employee, right? Employee access needs access to corporate resources, needs access to the internet, needs access to all sorts of different things in our environment. So their authentication processes should be completely different from guest devices, right? We don't want guest devices to be able to enter into our organization and have full access to our employees' same environment. So how would we do this? How do we change the game for one user and the other? How do we change what they have access to? Well, very simple answer to that is through VLAN implementation. Remember, if you remember back to ICND 1 and 2, when we talked about VLANs, we talked about data segmentation, right? We're breaking up our network into different local area networks. Well, in this case, I can have a local area network that employees can traverse. Even employees from different departments could have different VLANs they traverse, depending on the corporate resources they need, right? We can micro segment that up and say, oh, this is VLAN 20 they have access to. This is VLAN 30, VLAN 40. But no one has access to the whole corporate resource entity. So we have the ability to break it up in VLANs, and we can also have guest VLANs as well. This guest device has a special VLAN that only allows them a certain amount of access. So let's review this for a second. We see here we have an employee on the left. The employee goes and attempts to what? Authenticate. He authenticates over to the ICE server. The ICE server then returns back the credential and says, yes, that's okay. They have access. And that in particular employee is given a certain VLAN. Allowed access to corporate resources we see. This could be through 802.1x authentication, could be through other forms of authentication. Now let's take a look at the guest authentication. The guest is going to use web authentication. Up here we used what? 802.1x. I went to the ICE server. I used it as a radius server, and it accepted my credentials and put me on VLAN 30 for my wireless interaction. But I have a guest device. Let's say my friend's visiting me. He doesn't work in that organization. His name is Bob. Bob comes over and we're having lunch in my cubicle. Bob wants to access the internet to show me something. His authentication process is and should be completely different than mine. First off, Bob has to use the web authentication process. So attempts to connect to the network. The network gives him a splash page, asks him questions, or gives some type of notification. This is then given up to where? Well, we're going to the same place, aren't we? We're going to the server, the ICE server. And the ICE server says yes or no to this. Did they select yes to acknowledge the policies? Was there a guest access given? And due to the responses, and we'll go through them in a bit, they're given a completely different VLAN. A different VLAN than mine. They're given VLAN 50. Now notice the availability of VLAN 50. VLAN 50, what's given, allows us to move where? Only to the internet. No corporate resources are allowed to be utilized on VLAN 50. The data has been segmented. So very important to understand this process and how it all goes together. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into this web authentication process. We're going to spend some real time looking at the different implementations we can put forth.